Hi everyone, I'm Jenny. We have an awesome story today. It's about the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Over the last 2000 years plus, there have been all kinds of speculations as to whether this story even really took place. The reality is that there are records that were recorded back from that day to present of the historical fact that Jesus really did rise from the grave. Stay tuned in today as our team will come and share this awesome story. It's been great to be with you these last 13 weeks. Hopefully I will see you in the future Bible stories we have.
Hey, hey! Jesus came down to earth from his throne on high. He humbled himself, he came to live so he could die. He was killed on the cross, but he rose up from the grave. Death was defeated, so wipe your tears away. I'm gonna clap my hands and shout Hosanna. Jesus is risen and he lives forever. He took my sin and set me free. Jesus is alive, I believe. To make our way to God, there is nothing that you and I can do. Helpless on our own, we needed him to come for our rescue. Our sin has a price that we could never pay. Jesus paid it all so we could be saved. I'm gonna clap my hands and shout Hosanna. Jesus is risen and he lives forever. He took my sin and set me free. Jesus is alive, I believe. Jesus is alive, I believe. Jesus is the Son of God, the sacrifice for sin. He is the risen King, and he's coming back again. Jesus is the Son of God, I believe, the sacrifice for sin. I believe he is the risen King, I believe, and he's coming back again. I'm gonna clap my hands and shout Hosanna. Jesus is risen and he lives forever. He took my sin and set me free. Jesus is alive, I believe. Jesus is alive, I believe. Son of God, sacrifice for sin. He is a risen King and coming back again. I believe.
Hey everybody, I'm JV the Bible Junkie, and I have our memory verse today. It's found in the book of Matthew, chapter 28, and verse 6. It says, "He is not here, he has risen, just as he said. Come, and see the place where he lay." Matthew chapter 28, and verse 6. NIV. At the count of 3, I want you to say the verse with me. Ready? 1, 2, and 3. He is not here, he has risen, just as he said. Come, and see the place where he lay. Matthew chapter 28, and verse 6. NIV. I do believe that Jesus rose from the dead. All the other people claiming to be gods, died, and are all still in their graves. But Jesus rose, and was seen by hundreds of people over a period of days. Our calendar is marked by his resurrection because we go by AD, which means after death of Jesus. Also, Jewish tradition holds to at least 2 or 3 witnesses to prove that something is real. Jesus was seen by over 500 people before he ascended into heaven right before them. I'm JV the Bible Junkie. It's been great to be with you in this series.
Hello everyone, I'm PF, and this is our last lesson on the weirdest stories of the Bible. Kind of sad when you think about it, that we're already at the end of what we've been talking about, but the reality is there are so many more weird stories in the Bible that we really don't have the time to try to do all of them. So I would encourage you to research some things on your own. All right, now today we're going to talk about the resurrection of Jesus, but in itself, the resurrection of Jesus is not weird, but the things that took place along with his resurrection is what's in the category of weird. So I want you to look at this verse with me real quick. Matthew chapter 27, verses 51 through 53. It says, "At that moment the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook, the rocks split, and the tombs broke open. The bodies of many holy people who have died were raised to life. They came out of the tombs after Jesus' resurrection and went into the holy city and appeared to many people." Now that's Matthew 27, 51 through 53 in the NIV. Now, okay, you might not find this weird, but I sure do. Now think about it. When Jesus rose from the grave, many of the graves of the saints who died rose as well. And the Bible tells us, because it's recorded in history, that they went into the holy city of Jerusalem, besides the fact that it's recorded in the Bible. They went into the city of Jerusalem and appeared to many of the people. Now remember, JV said that 2 or 3 witnesses were, back in the day, to verify statements for the Jews of whether something was true or not true. Now Jesus had over 500 people that witnessed and saw him. And how many more does this become more real than when other graves opened up as well? So this is why this story makes it into the weird category, at least this verse, which is really interesting. I find it to be. Now what makes this even more interesting is that the story of the Roman soldiers, they were told to circulate a recorded fact according to Jewish and Roman history. That is, that they were paid to tell a story. Now these guards were used to keeping secrets of all kinds, and a Roman soldier with full dress could walk 20 miles without breaking a sweat. And these soldiers were also 40 to 50 of them who were placed at the tomb in shifts of 4 hours each. So believe me when I say these men could hold their ground in battle, but they could not hold Jesus in the tomb because he rose again, and he rose triumphantly. Hallelujah! Yeah, that's awesome. All right, Professor Whoopi will be here in a few to tell you even more about this story. See y'all later, and thanks for joining us this last 13 weeks.
This is a simple, but powerful illustration of the power of the resurrection of Jesus versus the others who claim to be God with a little g and still end up dying, and remain in their graves. Watch this illustration here. This egg represents people that the Romans had killed. This bowl represents the tomb that some were placed in. Watch, see what's happening. This egg is broken and dead. It cannot be fixed ever. So, it will remain here in this tomb forever. Jesus came along one day, and the religious leaders wanted to find a way to get rid of him. They finally got him after 3 years of ministry. They had Jesus, and condemned him to be crucified, and placed in a tomb. Early on the 3rd day, after Jesus' death, all of a sudden, he rose from the grave. And he was gone. He was not in the tomb, but his clothes are left there. Because Jesus has risen, just like he said he would. Praise be to Jesus, who is God's risen Son.
Hello everyone, I am Professor Whoopi, and I'm here to whoopee up a big one for you today, indeed. Oh, this is the last of our weirdest stories of the Bible today, so we're going to conclude with a very good one today. Now, let's go to the book of Matthew, chapter 28, and verses 1 through 10. It says, "After the Sabbath, at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven, and going to the tomb rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. The angel said to the woman, 'Do not be afraid. I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples that he has risen from the dead and is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him. Now I have told you.' So the woman hurried away from the tomb, afraid yet filled with joy, and ran to tell the disciples. Suddenly Jesus met them. 'Greetings,' he said. And they came to him and clasped at his feet and worshipped him. And then Jesus said to them, 'Do not be afraid. Go tell my brothers to go to Galilee, and there they will see me.'" Matthew chapter 28, verses 1 through 10 in the NIV. Now, the Bible tells us that there was a violent earthquake, and the angel of the Lord rolled the stone away, breaking the seals just like it was paper. Each of the Gospels share a similar resurrection story, but Matthew is primarily writing to the Jewish people, so his audience, he is describing what the soldiers felt, and after that, they left to tell the chief priests what they witnessed. Now the angel told the woman who came to anoint Jesus for burial because of the Sabbath day that he was not there, and showed them the grave clothes laying there. So we find the women hurrying back to tell the others what had happened. Jesus later appears to over 500 people, which was more than enough for proof that he rose from the grave. To this day, we celebrate Easter, not with eggs or bunnies per se, but the fact that Jesus rose from the grave and now he resides in heaven with his Father, till the day that his Father says it is time to bring the believers home in the rapture of the church. Wow! And this is another story for another time. But let me just recap quickly. The scriptures that PF read explain that when Jesus rose from the dead, there were a number of graves that were opened up, and people that got out of them and went back to the city of Jerusalem to present themselves to their families who were alive. So the power of the resurrection was not just in Jesus raising from the dead, but anything around him was affected as well, which is very, very interesting. Whoa! And that's what puts this story in the weird category, because not only was Jesus risen, but also other saints who have died and gone before rose again. and told the miraculous witness of what they had experienced, as well as what they knew that Jesus rose from the grave. Oh, all right, now the rest of the team will be here to wrap things up today, but it is time for me to go, and it's time for me to say goodbye. Auf Wiedersehen, arrivederci, hasta la vega, hasta la viga, a hula hula, ho 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 ho. Last but not least, as always, arubabu, ho 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 ho. Don't ever forget that God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit, and Professor Whoopi and friends, we love you, and we want to see the best for you. Goodbye.
On the third day after the death and burial of Jesus, two women, both named Mary, came to the tomb of where the body of Jesus had been placed. Planning to take care of his body, the women were shocked to find the large stone covering the tomb's entrance had been rolled away. Even more shocking was the angel that stood before them, declaring, "Jesus is not here, he has risen." Confused and scared, the women rushed from the tomb. Suddenly Mary heard a voice speak to her. At first, she thought it was the voice of a gardener working at the tomb. The voice spoke her name again, then Mary realized it was Jesus who was speaking. Jesus was alive. Her Lord had conquered death and risen from the grave. Jesus told Mary to go tell the disciples of his resurrection. Afterward, Mary entered into the room where the disciples were staying. She burst in and proclaimed, "Jesus is alive." The disciples were speechless, and some of them ran to the tomb to see for themselves. But one of the disciples, named Thomas, struggled to believe the news. He demanded to see the wounds for himself if he was going to believe. The resurrection is just as significant today as was to those who first witnessed it. Jesus was God's perfect sacrifice for sin. His death made it possible for us to escape the curse of sin and spend eternity in heaven. It's been great to be with you these last 13 weeks. Take care and God bless you.
There are 5 things I want to leave with you today about the resurrection of Jesus. 1. There was an empty tomb. The founders of other faiths are buried in tombs or had their ashes sprinkled over foreign lands. Not Jesus. Modern scholars and directors can claim what they want on their cable specials, but the truth is that the tomb was empty. 2. The tomb had a Roman seal. Clay was affixed to a rope stretched across a rock into the tomb itself. The Roman seal was pressed into the clay. Break the seal, you break the law, and you die. 3. The tomb had a Roman guard stationed there. The guard was at least 4 men, possibly more, of highly trained soldiers. These soldiers were experts in torture and in combat, not easily frightened off by a band of fishermen and tax collectors. Had they fallen asleep or left their post, they would have violated the law, resulting in their own execution. 4. The tomb had a stone in front of it. Most scholars put the weight of the stone at about 2 tons 4,000 pounds, probably at least 7 or 8 feet high. This was definitely a team lift or team roll, not movable by just 1 or 2 men. 5. There were post-resurrection appearances, to hundreds. Over a span of 6 weeks, he appeared to a variety of groups of various sizes in different locations. He appeared to over 500 at one point, a huge number to be an outright fabrication. Not to mention, the people whom he appeared to just see him, but ate with him, walked with him, touched him. Jesus even made breakfast at one point. There is so much more I could say, but time doesn't allow for us to do this. It's been great to be back with Professor and friends. I hope to see you all again soon.
It's been awesome to be with you guys these last 13 weeks. Today our group of guys are exploring about the resurrection of Jesus. Even though the team has mentioned interesting things about this, our guys want to share a little more about the inside things of the resurrection story. So, here we go to our group of guys.
Brothers, it's been a pleasure to share this great platform with you.
It sure has. The resurrection is unique, not only because of Jesus rising from the grave, but because of all the other things that happened around this event.
Yes, brothers, Like the open graves that was mentioned, and souls of holy people rising, and going back into the city of Jerusalem to see their loved ones that were alive.
Yes, but imagine being there in new home, and all of a sudden Uncle Mark who passed is standing there, and begins to talk to you.
Alright guys, listen up. Many have speculated what happened to the body of Jesus.
Yes, but what makes this different is that Jesus was walking, talking, and eating with people. And in 6 weeks' time, a lot of people saw him.
Besides that, the tomb was sealed, and the stone was 4,000 pounds. I really don't think that too many guys could move that, especially with the seal that was on it, and the weight of the stone.
As it was stated, Jesus was seen walking around, and over 500 witnessed him being ascended into heaven 6 weeks later.
Well, our guys are off to a great start, but the best is yet to come. They are going to explore a little more about the Roman guards that were there. Keep in mind that these men were mighty warriors of the Roman Empire. They were very important to Rome and the emperor who placed them there. Now getting back to our group of guys.
You know, we have not mentioned the soldiers yet.
Well, I was about to say something about them. These guys were mighty men. Strong, and not afraid of anything.
Yes, until the angel of the Lord came down with an earthquake, and rolled the stone away, breaking the seal.
What's very interesting is that these guards went to the chief priests of the Jews to tell them what happened, and they all made up a story about them sleeping.
According to Roman law, if a soldier fell asleep on his watch, he was executed.
Yes, but instead these men circulated this story that is still going around to this very day.
The other interesting fact is that it wasn't just 2 or 4 soldiers, but there was a company of 50 that were entrusted to guard the tomb, in shifts, which they definitely failed to do.
Technically, it is kind of hard to guard when you're on the ground, and cannot move, which is what happened to the soldiers that were there when all this took place. If you can imagine, they saw what was going on, but could not move to stop anything. So, the tomb that Jesus was in, according to the history of the Romans and Jews, is still empty to this day. No one since that time, to today, has ever occupied it since that glorious day.
Well, it's been a great last 13 weeks to be with all of you. These stories were some of the weirdest ones in the Bible. And believe me when I say there are even more. We just didn't get to all of them. But maybe you can research more of these out on your own. I don't know about you, but the tomb where Jesus was laid was a borrowed tomb, not one that his disciples purchased for Jesus. Now keep that in mind. So, since Jesus rose from the grave, no one has ever been placed into that tomb again. And it's the same tomb Jesus was in back then that is seen by millions of people who travel to Israel or the Holy Land to see the places that Jesus walked, as well as many of the prophets and the apostles that the Bible records, and as well as their travels and what they did as started churches and ministries. Wow, that is so cool that we can have the privilege today to see these places. Even if you can't travel, you can go online and you can see and experience the Holy Land. Well, it's been great to be with you today. I'll see you next time.
DSS Spin and OJO production. Thank you very much.